here's my post that we're going to use. I've sighted it, looked for crown, but it's being such a short piece, it's very hard to crown. I've taken a frame and square, I've checked the edges, see which ones are square, and I've determined that this edge here is going to be my reference edge. So I'm going to take my lumber crayon and I'm going to draw a pair of triangles on it. This one I'm going to fill in, and on the adjacent I'm going to draw the open one. So this is the edge I'm going to pull all my dimensions from. The next step is to lay out for the amount of wood that's going to go in the ground. So I've allowed for 2 feet to be buried in the ground for my mailbox post. And then from that point, I'm going to measure up 44 inches to the top of the mailbox post for the mailbox beam. That'll put the mailbox at 44 inches above the ground. I think the post office likes between 36 and 42. I want to have enough room for the brace to come down. I'm going to go with this dimension. So to make an accurate dimension, I put my tape on 10. I add 10 to my 44 and make a mark at 54 inches. Now, the through mortise is going to be a 1/2 inch under the 6x8, so it'd be 7.5. So putting my tape at 10, I measure down 7.5, and I make a mark. That's going to be the depth of my through mortise and my housing. I'm going to start laying out some lines. Using the frame and square, I'm going to draw a line around the timber to symbolize the bottom or the ground level. I'm going to give it 1/4 turn and lay out this last line. If the timber's square, this line should intersect the other line from the other side, which it does. The next tool I'm going to use is known as a Borneman layout template, and this is going to allow me to draw a line 5.5 inches over from the reference edge. The labels on the layout template show the 5.5. So I'm going to draw a line from 5.5 to the surface of the timber at the bottom of the mortise, and 5.5 to the surface of the timber at the top of the mortise. And from these two lines, I'm going to connect them. This gives me a profile view of the housing with the through mortise. On this side, we're also going to lay out 2 peg holes. The first peg hole is going to be 1.5 inches off the shoulder and 2 inches up off the bottom. The second peg hole is going to be 3 inches off the shoulder and 2 inches down from the top. So if we're at 5.5 and we subtract 1.5 inches, that's 4.5. Excuse me, that's 4. So on this 4 line will be a mark. The next dimension was 3 inches. So 5.5 minus 3 is 2.5. Here's my other line for my second hole. To ensure that I'm in line, I'm going to use another layout tool. The bottom of the Big AL is 2 inches. here are my 2 hole locations. I'm going to signify those with a circle. This side of this timber and this joint is done. I'm now going to roll to the adjacent face and lay out the adjacent face. As this is a through mortise, the mortise is going to come all the way through the timber to now allow enough length for the peg holes to have enough wood to hold it together. So it's 1.5 inches off the layout face, then 1.5 inches thick. So I have from 1.5 inches to 3 inches to draw a line, 1.5 inches to 3 inches to draw a line, and now I connect the 2 lines on the 3, on the 1.5 inches. This is the profile of the mortise. If this was a timber frame building, this mortise would never be seen because the siding would cover it on the outside of the building. That side is done. There's no further layout needed on that side. Now we'll go to the opposite adjacent. This is where the timber is going to come out. We'll start by bringing our through mortise, our housing line around. Using our AL Borneman layout template, commonly called a Big AL. Now that I have the top and the bottom of the housing, which is also the top and the bottom of the mortise, I can connect the 2 lines, 1.5 inches and 3 inches. That's the inside or the opposite adjacent face. This will be removed, Xing out my waste. This will be removed down to this point. The last face I have to lay out is the opposite reference. I need to continue the housing around here. So that comes back to 5.5, comes back to 5.5, connect the lines. This surface here, or this amount of the housing, is waste. I've now laid out the entire through mortise and housing including the peg holes.